You've heard of Big Pharma, but have you heard of Big Pharma? New documents reveal pharmaceutical company Moderna's alleged attempt to control the debate around COVID-19 vaccines during the coronavirus pandemic.
The Moderna misinformation reports by journalists Fang and Jack Polson reveal what the pharmaceutical company was willing to do to shape public discourse around COVID vaccines and affect policymaking. Joining us now to discuss his latest reporting is investigative journalist and contributing editor at Unheard, Fang. Hello, Lee.
Hey.
Tell us what we need to know about this story.
Well, this is an exclusive look at internal Moderna documents that show a sprawling effort to monitor basically everything said online, on social media, and in the news media about vaccine policy, COVID policy, about Moderna and other vaccine companies. They employ a artificial intelligence firm that is continuously monitoring and sentiment monitoring millions of different discussions and tweets and posts and Facebook posts all around the world discussing this topic. And what's particularly interesting, I think, about this story is that Moderna is working with NGOs, including Public Good Projects, this anti-misinformation NGO, to classify and push back against alleged vaccine misinformation. Where this is potentially problematic is that if you look closely at these misinformation reports, they are clearly blurring the line between fighting actual disinformation, intentional lies, and classifying legitimate points of discussion around vaccine policy as dangerous misinformation. So they're taking kind of a broad brush and painting any kind of criticism of their company, of vaccines, of any discussion as dangerous misinformation.
And can you clarify, what the tools of their what form the monitoring took? So obviously, they're a large company. There's nothing to, stop them, I guess, from, searching for what the trending topics are and what the discussion is like on social media. To what extent did it go beyond that?
Well, look, we know from a separate batch of documents, the Twitter files that I reported earlier this year, that the same partners that are working with Moderna, PGP and some of these other NGOs, had a direct line to Twitter's executives, and they also worked with Google and Facebook to shape content moderation policies. They were actually sending entire Excel documents with tweets that they wanted censored. Some of these tweets were, genuine misinformation, claiming that, the vaccines would implant a microchip into patients. That's obviously not true. But many of the tweets were genuine points of disagreement around coercive vaccine policy. There's a discussion around vaccine passports. That's something that both public health and civil liberties experts have pushed back upon. That was classified as misinformation by these Moderna-funded partners. And these NGOs were pressuring the social media companies to change their content moderation policies, to delete and to de-amplify some of these tweets that were critical of coercive vaccine policies. And in addition, we looked at these documents from Moderna, and they are using these misinformation reports to train 45,000 American healthcare professionals. These are doctors and nurses around the country, so that they are interacting with patients and pushing back against alleged misinformation. Again, some of these areas of alleged misinformation are simply tweets that are critical of vaccine companies.
You write in your article that one of the people who was specifically flagged was Russell Brand, who was, quote, suspected of being targeted for his, quote, anti-vaccine beliefs because he made the claim that Moderna and Pfizer made, quote, $1,000 of profit every second. He was a high-risk figure that was flagged. What were the implications of that? Was there any follow-through? What control did Moderna have over, say, the exposure the public had to Russell Brand? Brand, whether or not any videos were pulled, whether or not there was any algorithmic changes, that would have limited people's access to his videos on YouTube and the like. I mean, how did those flags translate into implications for the people who were flagged?
That's a good question, Brie. I don't know the full extent of Moderna's role, if they had any, in terms of demonetizing or censoring Russell Brand. Of course, in the last 2 months, given these sexual misconduct allegations, Russell Brand has faced a lot of different changes to his YouTube channel and to other platforms in which he produces content. But what is clear is that if you look closely at these reports produced by Moderna, the alleged misinformation that Russell Brand engaged in was nothing of the sort. The company flagged Russell Brand as a vaccine critic, and as an example of why he's a dangerous spreader of misinformation, they quoted him saying that Pfizer and Moderna at the height of the pandemic were making $1,000 of profit every minute, I believe. That's not misinformation. That's an approximation of pharmaceutical profits that was calculated by the nonprofit group Oxfam. This was widely cited in The Guardian, the New York Times. I've cited those studies. That's simply criticizing the pharma companies for not sharing the intellectual property, the patents, to create a generic version of the vaccine to make it more broadly accessible. This was criticizing big pharma for hoarding the vaccine technology and taking advantage of this pandemic to produce billions of dollars of profit. That's not misinformation. That's actually the truth.
Yeah, time and time again, it seems like Moderna and aspects of our national public health policy in government were interested in policing not actual literal misinformation, but merely disagreement about what the policies around vaccines should be and who should be profiting from them.
No, that's right. I mean, you look at many of these Moderna misinformation reports, they're flagging people who are simply critical of vaccine mandates. I mean, this is a very controversial policy. We look kind of retrospectively, these mandates were not successful in increasing vaccination rates. They got tens of thousands of Americans fired or pushed out of their jobs. These were controversial policies that were eventually overturned by the Supreme Court. This is not an area of misinformation that needed to be censored. This was a legitimate area of public debate around a very controversial and novel application of public policy that benefited just a small number of corporations, basically the government forcing you to buy a certain product and to use it in your body. I mean, this is a bodily autonomy issue, a public health area that deserved actually much more scrutiny, not less. And just to give you kind of a backdrop for these issues, unlike Pfizer, Moderna was a startup with no approved products before the pandemic. Their vaccine catapulted them into an international behemoth. Their valuation in 2021 zoomed up to over $100 billion. The pandemic minted 5 new billionaires at Moderna alone. So now with this year, as the pandemic is now in the rearview mirror, there are less people taking the vaccine. It really seems that this misinformation fighting effort is an effort to use the kind of crisis we've had around public, misinformation and these debates around speech to corral people and to push them into taking a product that's necessary for their profits. This is really kind of a dangerous blurring of lines between public health communications and corporate marketing.
Lee, thank you so much for your reporting and for joining us today.
Thank you.